The airport was alive with movement, families embracing, suitcases rolling, PA systems echoing with gate announcements. It was one of those ordinary mornings where thousands crossed paths, their lives brushing past each other for only a second. No one expected anything different. But fate doesn't give warnings. It creeps up in silence, waiting for the moment when everything changes. That moment came when a canine named Ranger, eyes sharp, ears twitching, stopped mid-step, his entire body tensing like a wire about to snap. His handler barely had time to react before the dog lunged at a man in line, his teeth locking into the man's jacket with terrifying force. Gasps tore through the terminal. Trays crashed. Someone screamed. But amidst the chaos, a single photograph slipped out from the man's coat and landed on the floor beside the snarling dog. It was worn, crumpled, folded so many times it had nearly torn through. A little girl smiled up from the glossy paper, missing teeth, a teddy bear tucked under one arm, and beside her stood a pale woman in a hospital gown, eyes filled with tired love. For a split second, the entire world slowed. And then something else fell, a small, sealed plastic pouch. Everyone stopped breathing. If you believe in the loyalty of animals, the power of redemption, and the importance of kindness, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Pawsitive Tales. Every story here is more than fiction, it's a tribute to how deeply animals and humans are connected. The man was Arif. To airport security, he was just another middle-aged traveler, quiet, nervous, maybe a little pale. But Arif's life wasn't quiet. It was filled with noise, the kind only the broken carry. Years ago, he had been a proud man. Not rich, but proud. He lived in Karachi with his wife Saba and their daughter Meher, a little girl with the kind of innocence that made people smile on bad days. Arif worked as a machinist, fixing engines and assembling industrial parts in a dusty warehouse that smelled of grease and exhaustion. But he didn't mind. Every evening, he came home to laughter, warm food, and the two people who gave his life meaning. Then one night, everything changed. Saba collapsed while putting Meher to bed. What they thought was fatigue turned out to be something worse, late-stage leukemia. Treatments began immediately, draining what little savings they had. Arif tried everything, extra shifts, borrowing from friends, even selling his tools. But cancer is ruthless. It eats through more than bodies, it consumes hope, slowly and painfully. One evening, after a long day at work, Arif found a note slipped under his door. It was from an old acquaintance, someone he hadn't seen since his reckless youth. The message was simple: if you need money fast, call me. Arif ignored it at first. He wasn't a criminal. But as Saba grew weaker and Meher's eyes filled with more questions than smiles, desperation became louder than pride. When Arif finally made the call, he told himself it would be just once. One job. One delivery. He wouldn't even have to touch the stuff. Just wear the jacket, go through security, and someone on the other side would take care of the rest. And in return, more money than he'd make in a year. Enough to buy meds, pay off hospital debt, maybe even get a second opinion from abroad. The first time, his hands shook. The second time, he cried in the airport bathroom afterward. By the third time, Saba was gone. Her final days were quiet. She held his hand and told him she knew. Not the details, but the heaviness in his eyes, the way he wouldn't meet her gaze, the late-night calls. She thanked him anyway. Said love makes us do impossible things. After her funeral, Arif left Meher with her grandparents. He told them he had business abroad, but the truth was, he couldn't look at her without drowning in guilt. He spent the next 2 years wandering odd jobs, sleeping in bus stations, sometimes eating only once a day. But he always kept the photograph, Saba and Meher at the hospital the day after a round of chemo. Meher was smiling with her gummy teeth, hugging her teddy bear. It was the last day Saba looked like herself. When Arif was caught at the airport, he wasn't thinking clearly. He wasn't even planning to go through with it again. But he owed money to dangerous people now, people who didn't care about sob stories or dead wives. They gave him one last jacket, one last threat. So there he was, walking into the terminal with trembling legs, and a jacket heavier than it looked. He never expected Ranger. The German Shepherd was trained to detect hidden substances,
but dogs often sense more than smell.
Ranger stopped in front of Arif with a growl that vibrated through the floor. When he lunged, he didn't aim for the packet. He aimed for the heart. The scene was chaos. Security staff restrained Arif, weapons were drawn, people screamed. But then Officer Amna picked up the photo from the floor. She stared at it for a long time. She had a daughter too, just about Meher's age. That photo, it wasn't just evidence. It was a cry for help. As procedures followed, interrogations, drug tests, arrests, Amna stayed curious. Something about Arif didn't sit right. He wasn't angry or defensive. He kept asking if the photo was okay. Not the drugs. The photo. She requested more information. Dug into his record. No priors. Clean employment history. Hospital records of Saba's treatment. She read his confession in tears. And when she watched the CCTV footage of him kneeling on the floor, crying over the photo, whispering Meher's name, she couldn't sleep that night. She reached out to Child Services and found Meher, living with her grandparents in Lahore. She was doing okay, but missed her father terribly. She remembered the teddy bear. She remembered waiting by the window every week, hoping he would come back. Amna arranged for a supervised call. Arif nearly collapsed when Meher's face appeared on the screen. She said, "Abu, I prayed you'd call. Mama said you're brave like the dogs in my cartoon." That day became a turning point. Instead of prison, the court approved a rehabilitation and community service sentence, partly due to Amna's testimony and Meher's emotional plea. Arif was assigned to an animal therapy center, working with troubled youth and retired canine dogs. Ranger was there too. At first, Arif was scared of the dog. But Ranger wasn't. He walked up, sniffed the man who once wore guilt like a jacket, and lay beside him. Their bond grew over months, training, walking, even sleeping side by side during storms. Arif learned to love again, to forgive himself in small pieces. He began writing letters to Meher every week. Drawing her pictures of the dogs. Telling her stories of Ranger's training. She'd send drawings back, stick figures of her, Arif, and Ranger playing in a park. And then, one sunny afternoon, the airport where it all started held a canine demonstration for children. Amna invited Meher and her grandparents as guests. Arif, now a certified trainer, introduced Ranger on stage. When Meher saw her father standing there in uniform, with the same dog who once changed everything, she ran into his arms. The crowd stood and clapped. Even the other officers wiped tears. If this story moved you, please like, share, and subscribe to Pawsitive Tales. Every view, every comment, helps us bring more stories of courage, healing, and second chances into the world. Tell us in the comments, have you ever seen the power of an animal change a life or save one? We'd love to hear your story.